Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and actress Charisma Carpenter just came out with some serious allegations about filmmaker Joss Whedon. And I've been getting tweeted at all day. Andy C., why don't you believe Ray Fisher? Joss, how dare you defend him? And I thought it'd be important to just let's put the record clear. Let's talk about these accusations coming in from Charisma Carpenter, and let's treat them as what they should be treated as, their own accusations. Let's talk about her case here, what she just brought to the table, and also talk about should it be connected to Ray's. That to me is a topic here, and I'm so happy to have Stormy joining me. Hey, Stormy, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so grateful we'll have a female perspective on this too. So thank you for being here and bringing your thoughts. So we both read this. So here's Charisma Carpenter next to Joss Whedon. They worked together on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel. Clearly a long history working relationship together. And she has now come out with some damning accusations and stuff here on her on two tweets that she put out. I want to read it all. In fact, I think let's just go there first. Let's read what she wrote, just so if those of you are unfamiliar, we can go there. So bear with me as we get through this, but that way you guys are all up to date. This is Charisma's tweets. For nearly 2 decades, I've held my tongue and even made excuses for certain events that traumatize me to this day. Joss Whedon used his power on numerous occasions while working together on the sets of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. While he found his misconduct amusing, it only served to intensify my performance anxiety, disempower me, and alienate me from my peers. Disturbing incidents triggered a chronic physical condition from which I still suffer. It is with a heavy heart that I say coped in isolation and at times destructively. Last summer, when Ray Fisher publicly accused Joss of unprofessional behavior towards the cast and crew during reshoots on the Justice League set in 2017, it gutted me. Joss has a history of being casually cruel. He has created a hostile and toxic work environment since his early career. I know because I experienced it firsthand, repeatedly. Like his ongoing passive-aggressive threats to fire me, which wreaks havoc on a young actor's self-esteem, and callously calling me fat to colleagues when I was 4 months pregnant, weighing 126 pounds. He was mean, biting, disparaging about others openly, and often played favorites, pitting people against one another to compete and vie for his attention and approval. He called me in for a sit-down meeting to interrogate me and berate me regarding a rosary tattoo I got to help me feel more spiritually grounded in an increasingly volatile work climate that affected me physically. Joss intentionally refused multiple calls from my agents, making it impossible to connect with him to tell the truth, to tell the news that I was pregnant. Finally, once Joss was apprised of the situation, he requested a meeting with me. In that closed-door meeting, he asked me if I was going to keep it, and manipulatively weaponized my womanhood and faith against me. He proceeded to attack my character, mock my religious beliefs, accuse me of sabotaging the show, and then unceremoniously fired me the following season once I gave birth. At 6 months pregnant, I was asked to report to work at 1 a.m. after my doctor recommended shortening my work hours. Due to long and physically demanding days and the emotional stress of having to defend my needs as a working pregnant woman, I began to experience Braxton Hicks contractions. It was clear to me the 1 a.m. call was retaliatory. Here's part 2. Back then, I felt powerless and alone. With no other option, I swallowed the mistreatment and carried on. After all, I had a baby on the way, and I was the primary breadwinner of my growing family. Unfortunately, all this was happening during one of the most wonderful times in new motherhood. All that promise and joy sucked right out, and Joss was the vampire. Despite the harassment, part of me still sought his validation. I made excuses for his behavior and repressed my own pain. I even stated publicly at conventions that I'd work with him again. Only recently, after years of therapy and a wake-up call from the Time's Up movement, do I understand the complexities of this demoralizing thinking. It is impossible to understand the psyche without enduring the abuse. Our society and industry vilify the victims and glorify abusers from their accomplishments. The oneness is on them to expectation to accept and adapt to be employable. No accountability on the transgressor who sails on unscathed, unrepentant, remorseless. These memories and more have weighed on my soul like bricks for nearly half of my life. I wish I had said something sooner. I wish I had the composure and courage all these years ago, but I muted myself in shame and conditioned silence. With tears welling, I feel an overwhelming sense of responsibility to Ray and others for remaining private about my experience with Joss and the suffering it caused me. It is abundantly evident that Joss has persisted in his harmful actions, including to create wreckage in his wake. My hope now is, by finally coming forward about these experiences, is to create space for the healing of others who I know have experienced similar serialized abuse of power. Recently, I participated in Warner Media's Justice League investigation because I believe Ray to be a person of integrity who is telling the truth. His firing as Cyborg in The Flash was the last straw for me. Although I'm not shocked, I am deeply pained by it. It troubles and saddens me that in 2021, professionals still have to choose between whistleblowing in the workplace and job security. It has taken me so long to muster the courage to make this statement publicly. The gravity of it is not lost on me. As a single mother whose family's livelihood is dependent on my craft, I'm scared. Despite my fear about its impact on my future, I can no longer remain silent. This is overdue and necessary. It is time. 2 of 2. So look, I want to get your thoughts on this too, Stormy, but taking Ray Fisher out of it first and reading what she does and she's written, I feel like she does really get into some specifics of emotional awfulness that clearly was happening on set. It sounds like it wasn't a good experience for her at all. It sounds like he was cruel. She's giving us specifics about what actually happened, and I don't like reading it. It sounds like if this is true, this was not a healthy place for her to be, not a healthy relationship they were in, a confusing relationship for her, a power issue where he's the boss and treating everybody like a certain way, sort of just because he can, and it didn't sit well with her then, and as she matured and grew up, realized it really didn't sit with her later. I feel for her. Just because all of this comes forward and these specifics hit me, and I go, this sounds awful. It does make me question Joss Whedon and makes me frustrated if this is all true. I'd love to hear his response to this. Obviously, I always want to hear people's responses to something like this before I just rush to condemn. But I will say it seems credible, it seems heartbreaking, and I don't like it. That said, I'm confused what it has to do with Ray Fisher. She wasn't there on set. Why is she there doing the investigation for Justice League? Andy, it's because it's established as a history of what Joss Whedon did. And I'm sorry, no, you lose me there. If there's specific instances of problems and stuff that happened on that set, they should be investigated about what happened on that set, not bringing in a bunch of emotional past turmoil to sort of potentially cloud the judgment of, well, did it happen here? It's a risky thing to sort of bring people who've been through troubling things with people in the past to come be reliable witnesses in the future. I can't subscribe to that. Now, does that negate what Charisma Carpenter is saying? No. Does it mean we can believe Charisma and still have doubt and wonder what the heck happened to Ray Fisher? Yes. And that's where I stand on this. I think what Charisma shared here is serious. It should be taken seriously. I think Joss needs to respond if he doesn't want to be criticized. I just don't understand why she made it about Ray, because she wasn't there. Sure, he may have integrity to her. She may believe him. Okay, but you weren't there, Charisma, and we don't know what happened. And you are telling us what happened. He's not. There's a big difference. Stormy, what are your thoughts on this? Am I overreacting here? Do you think I'm being crazy?
No, you're absolutely correct. I think that what Charisma is doing is I think that she should have done it separately. If this is, I don't doubt what she's saying. This is her truth that she's speaking. So I think that should be totally separate. Now, what kind of disturbed me in the statement was when she said the last straw was when Cyborg role was taken away from Ray Fisher. Why would that affect you? You know what I mean? Why would his role being taken away from him affect you? I think that whenever it comes to this, like, she should have basically put it separately. I think what she's trying to do is establish a pattern of what Joss Whedon has done in the past, and that's what she's trying to do, and that's great, because with a lot of people that are survivors of people that are, the abuse power and everything, people do have a pattern of abusing powers, so I get what she's trying to do, but I do agree that she should have kept this separate from Ray Fisher, because she's given us very specific details and letting us know that. But Ray Fisher has yet to give us specific details onto what actually has happened. Now, I haven't really dug deep on the Ray Fisher thing, so I am totally unbiased when it comes to it. I still don't know what actually happened. I think he gives vague statements, but I do think that she should have kept this separately, because this has nothing to do with Ray Fisher. This is your truth that you're speaking. You're not speaking Ray's truth. You're speaking your truth. So I think it should have been separate. And I do wait to hear Joss Whedon's response to it, because this is something very disturbing. Like, what is your side on it? Because if this is true, and this is the work environment you had back on the Buffy days with all those female, actresses, I don't understand how that was a healthy environment. But again, I'm thinking that she's probably doing it as to just justify and state, hey, he has a pattern. I get that. I just don't see the correlation that has to do with Ray Fisher or why they brought her in. And you're correct. It sets a precedent where people have already emotional attachment and are clouding the judgment. And it doesn't let people think with a clear, logical head and take a standpoint of, okay, what is really true and what am I just emotionally thinking or basing my decisions on?
Well, and it creates doubt to me even further in Ray's story, because it's like, you shouldn't need her to tell me about what happened to you. Like, it does feel a little manipulative. And the only reason I feel that way is because Ray refuses to give us specifics. And it does feel like his specifics are other people's stories. And if that's the case, well, then you shouldn't be championing it, saying it happened to you, because he did. He made it personal about him, and it wasn't about that's where things got complicated. And I think he has done this wrong, where he's used this fan base to sort of become the mob to get rid of people in power that sort of wronged him and the people on set, and let's be honest, and Zack. And it just feels a little bit more malicious because we don't know what happened. And I'm sorry, I'm not a Ray Fisher stan where I'm just going to yep, I stand with him, I know what it is. No, you got to take each case separately. You got to hear what the evidence is. And if Ray Fisher, I've said this so many times and nobody wants to hear me, if Ray Fisher comes out with receipts and actually drops specifics, I will hear it. I'm going to be frustrated that he took so long, because I'm going to be like, you left this guy in power over at the Nevers for months, and why didn't you drop it then? Because if he's so bad, say it then, so we can actually remove him and have no doubt in our mind that it's a warranted decision. But by stretching out nothing and it's this and it absolutely has changes. It changed. First it wasn't racist, then it was racist, and then I don't know what happened. Then it's Walter Hamada. Now it's Joss again. Then it was Jeff. It's just like there's so much going on that I don't even know what he's fighting for. It's accountability for what? What did they do? It's important we know what people do. We can't just mob and push people out just because we're told to by others. That's not a healthy society. Now, people can come forward and say Joss Whedon's a jerk. I've heard, Stormy, I've heard people say Joss Whedon's a jerk, but that's not a criminal behavior. Like that's a personal choice, whether, the Hollywood town and people decide, do they still want to work with Joss? Did they have good experience with Joss, or do they want to avoid him because of the things they hear from Ray and other people? But they're not just putting out things saying, look, I don't like Joss, take this warning. They're out there actively trying to destroy him and his livelihood and everything about it. And that's where I've always taken, a pause, because I'm just like, I've been there. I've been there when someone lied about it and tried to take me down and brought a mob and inflated and lied about things. And it's scary. And that's, if people want to criticize me for being, a little bit more particular with Ray, then so be it. But that's the reality. I've lived it. And I would have easily been on Ray's side had he just told us stuff and he not come after me and others who were asking questions, which felt petty to me. So all of this has a history of why we've talked about the story. And I just wanted to make sure that the Ray connection, it's sad because it muddies the waters for what I think Charisma tells here is a heartbreaking story, if true. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know. But I've seen the interviews where she's uncomfortably had to sort of talk positively about Joss. There's more than just a statement and the history of things, that it all sort of connects in a way where I do think she's telling the truth there. I think she had a really miserable time there. But she's not out there trying to fire him and she's just like, look, this is what happened. Be aware. And I applaud her for being brave about that. For it is a risky move for her to do, because she also put out specifics. She opened up herself in her own stories. And I'm sorry, Ray, you haven't done that. So you don't get to earn that yet until you're brave enough to say what happened to you. And so the reality is, if you're the spokesman for other people, then be more clear about that, because you haven't said that. You've made it about yourself. So it's frustrating because, look, the bottom line for me, and I want to come back to you for your final thoughts, Stormy, but yeah, we can totally believe Charisma Carpenter. We can also not like Joss Whedon, but we can also still not believe Ray Fisher until he gives us specifics. I think all of those things can coexist. And anybody out there demanding that we now must believe Ray because Charisma tells us to, I think that's dangerous. That's not what this is. And I'm sad she put it there, because Charisma, you weren't there. Now, maybe you know more than we don't. That's another troubling thing. But then why aren't you guys sharing it? I can't support something that happened when someone's endorsing it who wasn't there. That's all we've heard is a lot of hearsay, right? It's like all hearsay of, well, this happened behind closed doors. Okay, so what happened? And then what's the outcome you guys want at a certain point? There was an investigation. They did it. Now, if that investigation was truly crooked, then put it all out there, Ray, so we can see that Warner Brothers, Warner Media, they're crooked, and then we can all have no doubt and have your back. But this, I don't know, there's something about just the stretching out, the deliberately teasing things. It doesn't sit well with me. What is your thoughts on all that, Stormy?
My thoughts is that I do agree with that. I think that with Charisma, I applaud her for speaking her truth and for speaking about what happened to her. And my heart goes out to her because that is heartbreaking. I don't think that she should have connected herself with Ray Fisher because of the fact that if she does know some specifics on what's going on, then you need to give us a timeline, Ray Fisher, on what actually happened, so that people that are unbiased like me and don't know anything that's going on, I can go in there with a clear mind and head. But when you do this, you're kind of clouding and muddying the waters by putting everybody else's story, but not really speaking your truth. She's speaking her truth, but what's your truth at this point? That is what we have to really look at. And I think in today's society, it's very, very, it's kind of like that olden days whenever they had, they were burning witches and stuff like that, the pitchforks and everything, where you basically judge somebody first and then go after them. And then afterwards you find out the details where the damage has already been done. People have committed suicide over wrong accusations. So this is one of those things where it's like, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but that's what I'm telling people. You need to be very careful. You need to look at all facts before you actually make a clear judgment or clear opinion on what actually happened. Empathy is about putting yourself in both people's shoes, and then afterwards standing back and then looking at it with a clear mindset and going in logical and saying, okay, this is two sides of the story. Let me go in and see the middle where the truth is. So my heart goes out to her. That is a truly heartbreaking thing, especially for her to go through during her pregnancy and everything. I applaud her for standing up, and that was very courageous. I just do not think it was wise of her to link herself with Ray Fisher, because there is no specifics on what actually happened with Ray Fisher.
Right. Sorry, but I was gonna say it also. Your thoughts of like it just, I don't know. It makes it more. It makes me question things more because Ray hasn't done specifics, but then he's out there calling out the person Charisma hates, who treated her like crap. Charisma is instantly going to like Ray and trust his integrity and his truth because he's saying things that she connects to and agrees with because it happened to her, right?
It's manipulation in a way.
Yeah, and it's like, and I'm not there, but they have to understand, like, stepping back from it. It's easy for a lot of people to just like ride the train and join the mob and be like, well, yeah, see, Charisma said this, so therefore it must have happened here. Without Ray having to actually give us anything, he's getting to get that check with someone who wasn't even there. Like, that to me is terrifying. Like, and look, the reality is, like I've said, maybe something happened. We don't know. I don't know why he hasn't shared it. And if he does, I will obviously respond and I will accept it. But until then, I have to have my guard up, and I think we all should, of being realistic. Of like, we should not go hate and condemn and destroy people's lives until we know the full story. And until Joss responds, like, again, I'm not going to condemn and paint them. I'm not going to defend him. I'm not going to be here supporting him and saying, oh, he's a great. I don't know the guy. I can't do that. And I haven't ever defended Joss. I've defended his work. I like some of his work. I can separate the work from the creator at times, right? But I've never defended him as a person because I don't know him. And I think that's what we all have to be better at. Now, Charisma knows him, and I believe Charisma knows him better than Ray Fisher did. At the same time, like, I think Ray Fisher might have been difficult in that set and frustrated given the climate of people hating on Zack Snyder, which they were absolutely doing. Minimizing his role, making him say booyah. All of this stuff adds up. I'm sure there was other stuff that was maybe worse. And I can see why he doesn't like Joss Whedon. He's frustrated. He's mad. I get all that. But that doesn't mean then, like, the dude should be destroyed forever. It just means, like, you guys don't get along. He's a jerk. Don't ever work with him. Tell people not to work with him. I don't understand where we're at this point where it's like, this isn't Harvey Weinstein. Like, there has to be levels of what this is, of like, well, what's the outcome? What is the punishment? What's the jail time? What does this mean for Joss? He can never work again because Ray Fisher said something and we don't need to know why. That's where I get frustrated. Now, with Charisma Carpenter, I think this puts another thing against Joss more clearly, that it's like, well, Joss, this doesn't look good, man. I think he does need to address this. A lot of his fans are turning on him. They're upset. Buffy Angel fans are like, how could you do that? Is this true? He's going to have to respond if he wants to put his, to fix this, because I do think she is a credible witness here. She's had a lot of time with him. But I share that because she's someone who would clearly, I think, want to jump on the train to take him down, and Ray and her teaming up. I saw it happen in my own downfall. A lot of my enemies teamed up with my accuser without, and she teamed up with a lot of my enemies to sort of use their evidence to win over the mob. I saw it firsthand. She had no evidence of herself, and she couldn't prove anything. So what did she do? She put out, come tell me if he ever did anything to you. Oh, look what he did to this person. Look what he did to this person. Deflected and used all of that evidence to, more in her story. So you got to understand, this is personal for me from that sake. I got to always be out there and making sure. And because Ray hasn't said anything, I can't trust it. Now, Charisma has. So right now I stand with her because I think it is brave for her to come up. Final word, Stormy?
Just You know, just basically when it comes to people in this, just please just think of go into this with an open mind. Look at it from all points of view. As a person once said, there's this person's truth, that person's truth, and the is the actual truth that actually happened. So I just think that until we wait until what Joss Whedon has to respond to, I do believe her as to what she said, and that's heartbreaking what happened to her. But I can't say why that has anything to do with Ray Fisher as to what happened to her on the Buffy set versus what happened to Justice League. I think that is two separate scenarios that should be kept separate. I do think that it's a little bit of manipulation attached in the Ray Fisher thing on there, not from Charisma's point of view, but more Ray Fisher, where it's like, I just don't really like that, where you get a whole bunch of people that just a mob together of, just one common enemy, and then you take them down. I just don't think that's very healthy for society, and that's just not a really great way for anybody to go through. So my final thought is just like, my heart goes out to her, and hopefully Joss Whedon will go ahead and get a statement. So we are waiting.
Yeah, and hopefully he will actually provide his evidence and not just keep relying on others to share old stories that have nothing to do with his. I think, you said it well said. What do you guys think in the comments? Thank you for being here, Stormy. Great conversation. Love your insight. Guys, if you want more stuff like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button right there, the bell, and smash that like button as well to help the engagement to get this story out there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet.